So we are at the Pixel Museum, which is a video game museum here in Strasbourg. And we found it on Google Maps before we left. And it seemed like a neat place, so let's go inside and check it out. Yeah, guys, so this is a really neat place. They have, I don't know if this is a rotating display here, but they have sort of an homage to Mickey Mouse currently. We just talked to the nice lady at the front. And they have 3 rooms, and then downstairs they have a game room, and you can play downstairs. So here's a sort of an homage to Mickey Mouse and the Disney Channel, and they have Mickey's Christmas Carol and the Sorcerer's Apprentice and Buttons, and then they have Walt Disney and Western Union, and it says, "Leaving tonight, stopping over KC, arrive home Sunday morning, 7:30. Don't worry about anything. I'll give you the details when I arrive, Walt." So that was the telegram, I think, when he sent when he started Disney Studios. And then we have Game Boy Color with Mickey Mouse and Disney World. And then the Fantasia game and the Sorcerer's Apprentice. Atari 2600, very, 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 very vintage Atari cartridge there. This is going to be a neat place. And then up on the wall here we have Mickey from the Sorcerer's Apprentice, a beautiful painting. And Walt Disney, Mickey Mouse. Oh, and here they have Disney World and Disneyland guide maps. It's funny, it's just like being home back in Florida. And Walt Disney World coins from the 4 parks. Boy, I would love to have that. I know, you'll all tell me check eBay. Maybe I will. Tokyo Disneyland. Very, very, very cool. Yeah, before we start the official tour, we'll just take the last Disney display case here that we have in the main lobby area. And they actually have a down here. They actually have a Mickey floppy disk game. Even those of you who remember 3.5-inch floppy disks may not remember 5.25-inch floppy disks, and they actually have a legit 5.25-inch floppy disk there. So this is a super neat place. We're going to start the tour here through this first room. Yeah, so they have the first, one of the first cathode ray tube TVs from France in 1955. Wiring diagram here for this guy here, which is very cool. Circuit breadboards and an oscilloscope. And in 1971, Nolan Bushnell, founder of Atari Corporation. Here we have the Magnavox Odyssey, which is very cool. The plug-in rifle. Very, very, very cool. The Magnavox Odyssey. 72 to 76, we've got Atari and Pong. Wild Gunman. Nolan Bushnell and Ted Dabney, founders of Atari Corporation. Very sad that they didn't persevere in their original form. Sears Telegames. Atari for Sears. A lot of people don't remember. Sears was kind of like a secondary OEM for Atari. So you could, a lot of the Atari games, including a 2600 VCS setup, you could get OEM'd through Sears with Sears branding on it. And now Sears is very sadly kind of kind of on its last days in America, so it seems already closed in Canada. Hopefully they'll survive. We love Sears. And I have to say too, I don't know if they do this for public service or what the deal is, but we're actually the only people in here at this minute. So I'm not quite sure how this place makes money, because the admission was only 18 euros for the two of us. And Nolan Bushnell, still alive. Lives in Southern California, I believe. Sadly, I believe Ted Dabney has passed away. And now we have more consoles here, and here we have the US patent for the Atari 2600 VCS. I still have one in my parents' basement. As far as I know, it still works. Very cool, even with the combined joystick paddle controller there, which they didn't come out with until later. All right, so we have, now we start to get into the cartridge era, and games like Blackjack and Fun with Numbers, and consoles with replaceable cartridges that aren't bespoke, and the Bally home entertainment system, which is very cool. I can't even imagine how long it took them to put this together. And then down on the bottom we have sort of the bespoken games of the time, the Merlin, the Simon, Motocross. But here we have Pixel Museum, Steve Jobs and Steve Wozniak make breakout for the Atari in only 5 days. The Atari 2600. And then 1982, E.T., which began to and led to the great video game crash of 1983. Very sadly, when the video game market, basically the bottom fell out on it, and because a lot of people were making low quality games. As I said, the game was proposed by Howard Scott Warshaw, and he only had 6 weeks to make the game, and as they note here, the game is not as bad as its reputation, and they quickly sold 1.5 million of the 4 million cartridges. An urban legend tells that unsold copies were buried in the El Paso desert, and in fact they did. That wasn't an urban legend, that was true. Although I will add one thing to that, one comment to that observation. Although the game is not as bad as its reputation would have you believe, a lot of those copies were returned. Yeah, and Atari Force was a comic book, I believe, which had various elements of the Atari games in it. And this is from, I believe these are from Atari Age magazine, which I was a subscriber to back in the day. And over here we have some more consoles, including the Commodore VIC-20 and Commodore 64, which were also very cool. Texas Instruments TI-99. Of course, I started learning programming on a TRS-80, which a lot of people call the Trash 80. And down here we have a Commodore PET. And this is all very cool, but to end the, to sort of put a finish to the story there, the video game market fell out in 1983 and didn't really recover until the advent of the Nintendo NES in 1986. And most of that was due to the low quality games that were just being churned out by a lot of the studios were independent at the time, so they would basically hire in programmers and give them a ridiculously short amount of time to churn out games, and so they basically just came out with whatever garbage they could come out with, and the consumer public took note. Space Invaders on many different platforms. David Crane worked for Activision, as I recall. Actually, yes, co-founded Activision. Indeed. Created the game Pitfall, one of the best video games ever created. We have more ads from Atari Age magazine here. And here we have a new edition of the Atari 2600 VCS. On a legit old school video game monitor. I bet that displays very brilliantly through the GoPro. Oh, and here we have a collection of Atari games, both Activision and Atari. Pixel Museum branding in the Atari 2600 silver. Now they sort of have this wrong. As I recall, Frogger was also done by Activision, so that's a little bit of a mistake there. I never had Frogger. My cousins JJ and Tammy had a copy. I was always jealous when I played it at their Aunt Byrne's house. Very, very cool. I still have Pac-Man for the Atari 2600 VCS. California games, which I had for the PC. Ghostbusters, Indy 500. Move this. Demons to Diamonds, a great game. Uses the paddle. And then Pitfall and Berserk. Excellent games at the bottom here. Adventure. First game with an Easter egg. And here we have some consoles with cartridges playing Pac-Man, or a knockoff version of Pac-Man. Here we have more versions of the Odyssey. And then down at the bottom, a Frogger board game. And one thing I think I forgot here. I keep this G-rated, but I'm a little bit annoyed with myself at the moment, so we'll keep it mostly G-rated. If this video looks like ass, I apologize. I forgot to set the frame rate on the GoPro to 50 frames per second to reflect the 50 hertz power that they have here in Europe. So you may see the lights flickering. So if that's the case, I apologize for that. Atari 5200 console, probably one of the best consoles ever made during its time. I know that'll be very controversial because a lot of people are Nintendo NES fans, but I always loved the Atari 5200. And now we have starting to get into the sort of the Game Boy model for video games. And now we have Pac-Man, Donkey Kong Jr. Jumpman was Mario's original name. One of my favorite games ever, Donkey Kong. So we just finished up here at the Pixel Museum, and I apologize for the traffic. I've got no choice but to do this outro with the cars going by me, because I've waited and waited and waited, and they just keep coming and coming and coming, even though this is a side street with nothing going on. But anyhow, we just finished up here at the Pixel Museum, and we had a wonderful time. It was a wonderful homage to video game history, and highly recommended if you're here in Strasbourg. We're actually here on a Saturday, and the museum was empty. And we asked the girl working the front desk in broken English. We said, "This is a wonderful museum, but there's nobody here. We feel bad." And even though it was broken English, she was able to tell us, like, "Oh yeah, no, the schools are not on holidays. The kids are studying right now, so that's why it's not very busy at the moment." So we said, "Oh, that makes sense." So if you're in Strasbourg, hit up the Pixel Museum. It's a great visit. And so now that we're done with that, we're gonna go get a coffee and try and relax from all the traffic that's going by. and head down back into the main city part of Strasbourg. We got a lot we want to accomplish today, so we'll see you from city center.